we're going to click go live and see what happens. And I am here tonight with my dear friend and client, Jenny, to talk about Empath grad school, right? Maybe you've heard a little bit of buzz about it, and we're going to just talk a little bit about what that is. And Jenny has been through the program, so she's going to share a little bit of her experience. We're going to get feedback a little bit about your experience and answer any questions you have, and have a really fun, beautiful night here together. So if you're watching on Facebook and you want to pop over here into Zoom, then you can interact with us. You can actually talk to us. But for right now, we're just going to take it away. So I may not see your comments or so forth on Facebook, just so you know. And so let's see, where do we want to begin? The first question that I have for you, if you're watching, and also Jenny, I'm going to have you answer this question as well, but what is your biggest challenge as an empath? What do you find the thing that is most challenging for you, that you would most like to change, that you've most struggled with? And Jenny, for you, what was the thing before you started Empath grad school that felt the most challenging for you?
Actually, when quarantine started is when it really hit me. What was going on before that. Like, I was always prone to mood swings and stuff like that, and just chalked it up to mental stuff. But when quarantine happened, or the pandemic and everything hit, I was pretty much paralyzed, completely paralyzed. And then realized like how much I pick up on it. It was actually my another empath therapist that was like, "Oh yeah, you're an empath. That's what's going on." I'm like, "Oh." So I think the biggest challenge at first, or like now that I'm aware of it and I still struggle with it a little, is just how quickly stuff hits, and over really, so
yeah,
and never
so
really
a lot of overwhelm from everybody else's stuff, feeling paralyzed, having it sort of stop you in your tracks, and then having things come very quickly. So raise your hand or put a thumbs up in the comments if you can relate to that, and if that feels like something that you struggle with as well. And I'm going to just see if I can interface here with Facebook at the same time. Actually, maybe I can do it on my phone, because it's always nice to see what people are saying as well. So let me just see if I can get both activated at once here. Sometimes technology is a little bit funny. Let me just see if I can find you guys here. And so, yeah, what are some other challenges that maybe you experience? Okay, great. I can see your comments. So if you want to comment, I'll just be checking my phone so that you can be here too if you're not able to make it into Zoom. So for me, I'll just talk a little bit about some of the things that were true for me before I learned how to master my empathic abilities. I struggled with depression. I thought that I was crazy. I had crazy mood swings that came out of the blue and then just would lift. Jenny's nodding, so I'm sure you can relate to all of this. I thought I had social anxiety. I would walk into a room and feel really weird and wonder what was wrong with me. And it was actually one day where I literally, feeling good, walked into somebody's house and immediately felt off, and walked out and immediately felt better. That I realized, oh my gosh, this has nothing to do with me and everything to do with this space and the people in this space. And I'm just picking up on everybody else's stuff. Mental anguish, chatter, like craziness in my head, thoughts in my head that I didn't know what to do with. And so I think this leads nicely into my next question. What are some of the ways that being empathic maybe is negatively influencing and impacting your life? Or for you, like, what were some of those things that were impacted before you learned how to really work with your empathic abilities?
Definitely the people I attracted in relationships is still a struggle. But now I can see what's going on. But for
Mm-hmm.
sure, just being empathic, it's hard for me to fathom like the the opposite kind, like the bad kind of person that likes to take advantage of empaths. So
Right. Yeah.
sure, being attracted to the narcissist was.
Yeah. Being attracted to narcissists, the takers, a lot of us empaths are people pleasers. We self-sacrifice, we rescue, we give the shirts off our back to people who don't appreciate it, right? And as a result, many of us end up feeling like we don't matter, that we're being used, that nobody cares about us, that we're just different, that we don't belong anywhere, all those kinds of stuff, right? And it makes it hard to some degree, at least for me, I don't know about everybody else, but it made me hard for me to like really function in my life. Like another piece, I wonder if this is true at all for you, but like emotional exhaustion, drain, or overwhelm.
I just thought of another thing too. In picking up those kind of people and being able to sense how they feel about themselves, I would take that on as mine.
Mm,
I tended to
yeah.
people who would, you know, not feel so great about themselves. And so I would pick up on that, but not really realize that that was theirs, not mine.
Yeah, right. So that's something that I think and talk about a lot is that when you don't understand your empathic abilities or able to sort out what is yours and what is not, often your confidence and your self-esteem really suffers, right? You think like, oh, I'm no good, or what's my problem, or why does nobody like me, or all these kinds of things that when you really learn what's really going on, like how much are you absorbing from everybody else, or maybe you really are as psychic as you haven't given yourself credit for. And when you start to really own that and know how to work with it, then your confidence increases, your sense of empowerment increases, and then you're able to show up to your life in a different way. At least that's what I found. And like I literally would go to get to this place where I was like, I just can't take my life anymore. I'm out of here. Like I would run away to the woods, literally drop everything, quit things, run away to the woods, and like feel like I had to start over. And then I realized, oh, maybe I can pick those and see those warning signs before I fall off the cliff, so to speak, and I can address whatever's going on in my life so it doesn't end up being this extreme cycle. So that's sort of like some of those costs, right, to your life is like not being able to like have an even rhythm and be an emotional roller coaster. And when you get off of it, sort of much easier. I see you nodding. I'm assuming you can relate to some of that.
Sure. I get the same urge too, where it's like, when the overwhelm comes in and I'm, would be like, shut it off. I just want to curl up and do nothing. And yeah. And sometimes I try just to shut it off.
Right? It's just like trying to shut out the world because it's too much.
Yeah.
And if you learn how to have the skills and have the tools, then it's easier to be in the world and engage with the world without it like riling you up. And I mean, even for me, like a lot of empaths talk about going into large social settings and how overwhelming and challenging that can be. And I certainly was that way too. Now I can have fun in those environments. If I'm in a good place in myself, I can have fun and I can play with the energy of the room in a way that wasn't possible before.
Actually, even grocery shopping now, it's funny. Like I can pick up on like a crowd of people, like within even like different neighborhoods where I live. It's like, well, this neighborhood I feel like, and then sometimes like certain people that I walk by, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, right. So you get that clarity and you get that discernment. So it's not, as I was telling somebody today, it's not like all just clumped together in one big
Right.
energetic mess. It's like you can start to pick out the individual threads. Like, oh, that's that person over there, and that's this. Or like I can literally sense who I'm feeling. For example, I had an instance the other day where I was feeling like really dark, contracted. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I had a sense. And then an ex reached out to me that night, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what that was. But I was pretty sure it was like one of a couple people, and boom, yep, there it was. Or I've literally picked up the phone and called someone and said, what's going on? Because I feel you. And I didn't used to know all of those distinctions, right? And so part of this journey is learning to distinguish and be able to differentiate all these different levels. It's so exciting, right?
Trusting yourself on it too. Like that's been a big thing.
Yeah. So we're kind of segueing into my next point, which is what would it mean for you and your life if you could master your empathic abilities, right? It gives you this power to tell what is actually going on, to read people, to help people, to assist people. So what are some of the things that you have gained or developed, and what has it meant for your life to be able to master some of these skills for yourself?
Well, I mean, for sure, being able to set better boundaries, even in myself, like not even, I mean, verbally too, but like even in myself, like when I can feel, and like I've done a lot of work with you with like pulling my energy back because it before tended to be everywhere and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize it. And I'm like, man, I'm so exhausted. Well, being a teacher, it's like, okay, leave all that there. Like, because, I've always worked with challenging populations just because I'm good at it because of being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to leave my heart in little places with them. Plus, the relationships and family or whoever. So I've learned the boundaries. That's been
So
a big
really having more energy and um, resources available to you in your own life, right?
and
And
sense of mine. Like before the whole energy was just so everywhere that I couldn't really sense me. And so I think I've really gained a sense of self a lot where it's like,
yeah, right. So to really access your own sense of self and the clarity about who you are as a person. I've also watched you really, we're talking about like that discernment piece, really be able to, instead of just feel like, ugh, what's wrong with me, so to speak, be like, oh, I am aware of this particular thing, or all of a sudden I have this weird energy coming into my life. Oh, I can tell what that weird energy is about, right? Um, and I can sense, and not only that, I can figure out what the energy is that's coming into my space, and then what do I do with it to make it shift.
mm-hmm.
And that's something I've watched you really increase your skill at, right? And I mean, it's been beautiful to watch you use to witness you use the tools that I taught you to be like, well, no, it's not this. Okay, here's what it is. Or we'll message each other, and she'll message me back and say, oh, I figured out what was really going on and I feel much better and I'm good.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing of like, instead of being at the effect constantly of being empathic, like so many people say it's overwhelming, or they wish that it could go away, or that they could just stop being an empath. I say you can't stop it, but you can be the sort of conductor of it, and you can decide sort of how it's gonna play. You turn it into a beautiful concert rather than a whole bunch of noise in your life. So if you're watching and want to comment in the chat or on Facebook, just what are some of those things that like you see as being at the other side of really mastering your empathic abilities and turning it into a true gift, right? Because for me now, I mean, I even shocked myself how much I'm able to read about other people and tell about other people, and very subtle things sometimes. I'm like, well, am I just making this up? And then I'll get the feedback. It's like, no, it's really quite accurate. And the more you learn how to master your abilities, the more confidence you have, right? We go back to that thing of confidence. The more you're like working with those pieces, then the easier it becomes.
I didn't realize I was so clairvoyant. Well, I did because I used to have the dreams and stuff, and I always trusted those but yeah, now that I'm aware of like what these slams of like the really intense ones, that's always something coming in where I'm like, oh, and then
Right. And so you know that now instead of like, oh, what's happening to me? Yeah, beautiful. So let's just see right here what else I have in so this is a question for our audience. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you believe it is for you to be able to master your empathic abilities? We talked about, where you started out, what the journey is like, and then what happens when you really get to this other side. What's possible for your life when you really get to the other side? And then the next question would be sort of, and this is a question to lead into talking a little bit more about Empath Grad School, but is like, so what would it mean? How committed are you to really becoming the master, really learning to use these gifts, as true tools in your life? And then is that something that you think you're going to be able to accomplish on your own, or is it something that you need help and support with? And I know for me, I spent a lot of years, so just a little bit of history for those of you that don't know, I spent a lot of years of my life really, really struggling with my emotional health, with my happiness, with feeling depressed, suicidal, not understanding what was going on for me, thinking I was going crazy. And I had to, through a lot of trial and error, figure out what was going to work for me, what was going to shift the dynamic, and how I was going to learn to work with being empathic so it didn't totally destroy me, literally. Like I was literally at the point where it's like, I'm either leaving this planet or I'm going to figure out how to do this because I can't go on anymore the way my life is. It's too hard. I can't function. And so what I've put into Empath Grad School is all of those years of searching and experimenting and figuring out what was going to really super shift things for me. And then working with clients to see what would really help them, what would really work with them, and help them really open up those spaces in their own lives. And I've just witnessed, I mean, Jenny's a perfect example, but I've witnessed so many people going from like feeling pretty discouraged and downtrodden in their lives to gaining these tools that will really help transform your experience and your life. We're not going to get too much into the details of what's involved in Empath Grad School, but essentially what I put together, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit too, Jenny, but is both a training and a coaching program. So we are doing some deep work together where I am using my empathic abilities to help guide you, to help you identify what are really the core pieces for you that maybe are keeping you stuck or twisted up. And then at the same time, I'm training you to learn the processes and learn the tools to shift your experience for yourself so that by the end of Empath Grad School, and it's a 3-month program, by the end of the program, you have the tools, the skills, the knowledge to work through whatever's showing up for yourself on your own without needing that external assistance. Do you want to say anything about what that process being in the school has been like for you? And
I think, well, before I started, I for years and years did lots and lots of like um exploring of like my childhood trauma and stuff like that. So I was pretty um aware of, you know, like the emotions that are tied to that. But, you know, once I was able to soothe that part and quiet that, then like all the other things would come in where I'm like, oh, what is this? And sometimes I could sit with it and figure it out, usually with like information coming in. But then there's sometimes where it's like, I cannot figure this out. So you've been really helpful in like helping me ask the right questions and things that I never would have thought to ask,
mm-hmm,
and like
mm-hmm,
explore. So that's been huge. And also the kinesiology has been like, I think that was like the most instant calm that I felt like, because we did that pretty early on. And I
mm-hmm,
remember just doing it where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better, like instantly. And now it's kind of become a habit to be able to do those. So, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think
you point out some really key pieces that I've heard repeatedly over the years that I've worked with people. And one is that I got more out of this one conversation with you than all of my years of therapy, because when you're an empath and you are going to therapy, if you're not addressing really the empath pieces of what's going on for you, it can get really sort of mixed up, right? And you don't have the clarity, you don't have the right tools to deal with the right problem. Because if it's an empath issue, excuse me, you're going to deal with it very differently than you are with a trauma. And so one of the things that, if you don't mind, Jenny, one of the things I saw for you early on was that you had a story and an experience and you have experienced a really high degree of trauma in your life. And one of the things that became really obvious early, what's that?
that my memoir will be coming out someday.
Yes, right. The memoir, and it's like quite a history. And one of the things that showed up early on in our work is that how much of what we ended up working on was not the trauma stuff, which is not the old history. It was all the empath stuff that you hadn't realized or recognized as such. And that when you did, that made some real dynamic shifts. Mm-hmm. Another piece that people tell me over and over again also is like how quickly we can get to the heart of whatever the issue is through the kinesiology, which is a system of working through with your body to really identify, like, I mean, literally in the course of 5 minutes of getting on a call with somebody I haven't met and maybe only chatted with or don't know hardly anything about, we can get right to like this old trauma or old issue that goes back to 5, right? And the thing that is keeping everything else sort of stuck in place. And so that's a beauty of this work as well, is the ability not to tell stories, not to spend a lot of time on past or future, but to really hone into what is the key elements of this experience. Is it an empath issue? Is it a trauma issue? How are we going to shift it? And then to shift it. And almost every session, I would say, my goal and what we work toward is not just cathartic release, right? Like you get sometimes in therapy, but to truly leave you feeling elevated energetically, feeling lighter, feeling happier. And I get a lot of it out of therapy as well, but sometimes I'll leave therapy. I mean, now I do. I have a great therapist for the first time in my life, but I'll leave those calls feeling like raw, drained, so to speak. This work does something very different. It leaves you feeling like peace, calm, joy, possibility, so to speak.
Sure. It feels like it sheds like you're not just going into the trauma, like you're shedding it and figuring out what you need to like.
Right. And it's like you get that sense of relief, you get that sense of lightness at the other side. So that's a big piece of this work is really creating those shifts and those transformations. And then the other thing I want to say that I'm really bringing in now to the program that we're developing, and I ended up with the name Empath Grad School kind of as a joke, but it feels like perfectly fitting because what we're doing is we're creating a group of all of you fellow empaths where you get to build a community of support and connection with each other. And so not only do you have me as a support and as a guide, you have each other. You have someone like Jenny who can be on your team and be like, I have that same experience too, or here's, let's walk through the tools together. So it really builds in a community of support when you need it. And then another, I think, feature that's really special and unique and that Jenny has worked with a lot in the program is what I call on-the-spot coaching. And I'll let you say in a minute about that, but is really, let's work with what's showing up for you in the moment that it's showing up, if it is to the point where it's affecting the rest of your life and affecting your ability to function. So as you know, as empaths, like all of a sudden you can have something hit you that you don't know what to do with, and it feels debilitating. And what choices do you have? You can ride it out. You can try to ignore it. You can, emotionally eat, which I've sometimes done, or, just be frustrated with it. You can withdraw and hide in your room. Or in this program, what we do is I'm available to help you apply the tools that you're learning in the rest of the course to whatever experience is showing up in the moment that it's happening. So you can learn how to work through it with my coaching. So eventually, when those things show up, you don't even need me. But if you're in a place that you can't quite get out of yourself, literally within the course of 10 or 15 minutes, we can go from like, oh my God, I feel so weird, I don't know what's happening, or like, oh, I'm bawling or whatever, to, oh, okay, I'm good again, I can keep going. And that's what I'm training you toward, right? Is so that in your life, whenever anything shows up, you can move it through it with such speed that it doesn't stop you, it doesn't affect your relationships, it doesn't affect your ability to show up in life and engage with the world. So do you want to say anything about that?
Yes. I would say that has been like one of the biggest. I mean, the tools are really good too, but like having you available so like in the moment, oh man, that's been like relieving to, because when you are in the depths of despair, you're like, oh man, this is never going away. Into it. And then, but being able to see that it actually really can go away instantly. It's like, oh man, it just builds.
Right. When you find the right bit of information, it's sort of like when you get the right key in the lock, it's just like,
Yeah.
and it just really changes. And
And it's like beyond just being relieving for that moment, it's relieving in life too, where you're like, oh, this isn't permanent. Like each time this happens, it's fixable, like right then. And so then if it happens again, because of course it's going to as you're learning what's going on, it's like, oh, you kind of remember last time. Well, yeah, I can call Alana and or text and okay,
yeah.
this.
Or
And
even I think there's been some times when maybe you've texted me, but then you're like, okay, let me try this, this, and this. And then you'll text me back and say, oh, I got it. Never mind. I'm good. Right. Because you're learning how to apply the tools and how to use the tools so it can shift. And then I don't know, for me, like when I've had things like that in my life, something about knowing that there is someone there if I need them is sort of like this nice reassurance that I'm not alone. And then I'll go, you know what? It's okay. It's not to the degree I have to call on them. Like, I got this, right? And so it gives me this confidence and the support, like, oh, I can handle this. But I know that if I can't, there's somebody who has my back.
And I think too, over time you a lot of it just does become automatic because at first it takes you, there's so many things you can do, and it really has been like I feel like each situation that comes up, I guess just because like there's so much going on out in the world, each one's so different that sometimes if I tried this before it didn't work, but you could give me suggestions that I hadn't thought of. But now
Right.
that I've tried those, now those are more automatic. And so I have.
Right. It's that training. It's learning the skills, and I mean this is part of what I think I really love about the program too, is that it's like you're learning the skills, you have the school, but then you have this like sort of practical aspect of it, is like, okay, in the moment, what do you do and how do you do it? And if you don't quite know, you get some coaching around it so that you're really, instead of it being like an intellectual exercise or conceptual or just a practice forum, it's like really getting integrated into everyday life, and like really not like, oh, I just in theory, but now what do I do when I'm actually in the situation? I think of it as like, what if in the moment, like you're learning mediation or conflict resolution with somebody, right? And you do all the practice and it goes really well in the classroom, and you go out in real life and you're like, well, it's like having me in your ear in that real life situation. I mean, this is a different thing, but I think it's a great analogy. It's like, I'm there to say, okay, here's what you do. In this instance, this is what happens. And if it goes this way, then you go this way. And so then you learn how to really live it.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and intuition where it's like, oh, okay. Or like a habit, like, oh, I feel funny. Okay, I'm gonna try this. Oh,
so
like
I just
intuitive.
So basically, we're going to wrap things up here in a minute, but basically, so you have a flavor of some of what Empath Grad School is like. If this feels like it's speaking to you, something that seems like it would have great value for you and your life, what I invite you toward is to come on a free call with me. Let's just have a conversation about what are the kinds of things that are going on in your life that you're struggling with, that you would like to get to the other side of. What are sort of the empath tools that you're looking to develop? And then let's see if this program is the right fit for you. I have right now just 4 more slots available that will be taken up by April 26th is when we're starting the next round. So if you're interested, please get on a call. Go to healingmindsandhearts.com/call, sign up for your free call. We'll have a conversation. If it's the right fit for you, then we'll talk about the particulars, what the design of the course is, what the time is, what happens when, how much it costs, and what are you investing in your life, in your future, etc. But we have that conversation only after we really determine this is the thing that you want to choose and is the right fit for you. We do have one person on with us here in Zoom. I'd be happy to bring you on if you have any questions. You're welcome to chime in here now. If anybody's on Facebook and wants to pop in here with their questions, or you have any, there are some comments here. Sorry. Sorry guys. I'm trying to read your comments and it's making the video play in Facebook. So Angie, do you have anything that you want to share here? Are you still with us? And then I will just see if I can. There's a way to read the comments without turning on the video here. Otherwise, if you do have comments, if you're watching this later, I'd be happy to answer them. Sign up for that call. You can get all your questions answered. We can go into in depth into everything that is involved. And I can't wait to share this work with you. I know that it can be life-changing. I really am rooting for you and rooting for your empowerment, because I see what happens when people don't do the work and don't learn the tools, and how much they keep spinning in the same patterns and same cycles in their lives year in and year out. And then I also see what happens when people learn how to understand and work with their empathic abilities in a new way, and what incredible transformation it can create. I have an old client, and she said, you'll see her quote on my website, but she said, this work basically saved my life. For the first time, my world makes sense. And the journey that she went on, also someone with a lot of trauma in her past, someone who had tried everything and felt like nothing was working for her, had this huge shift because she learned the part about being empathic and how to really work with that to be something for her empowerment. So that's some of the possibility. And plus we're creating a fabulous community in a much, I have my Facebook group, but in a much deeper way, in a much more connected way. I've watched clients become friends in real life. So that's part of the possibility, part of the adventure of Empath Grad School. And so I really look forward to talking with anyone who is excited about this, interested, even just curious, and love to see if it's the right fit for you. And thank you, Jenny, so much for being here, for coming on and sharing your journey. I feel like, my clients become like these very, very beautiful, special people to me. And like, I feel like Jenny's like a dear friend. Yeah. In a way, and I can't wait for the day when we get to meet in person. And
actually, one of my best friends lives in Utah, so I will be there. Hopefully.
Okay, and well, right now I'm in Vermont, but yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, I'm not.
Yes, we will have an opportunity, and that's another piece that will. Before COVID hit, my vision was to have quarterly retreats for each of my semester, or I guess whatever it is, each of my programs. And so as things shift and maybe come back to a little bit more normal, there will be an opportunity for people to come together and meet each other in person as well. So I'm sure we could talk forever. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone who is watching now or later, tuning in. Please do let me know if you have any questions, and I'll record. Okay, super. Yeah. If you want to talk to somebody who's done the program, not just me promoting myself, Jenny is available. I have a few other people who have done work with me in various ways, maybe not specifically this program, but they'll also be happy to share their experience and give you some feedback on what's involved in it. And we'll talk again soon. Oh, quick announcement. If you've watched this far, I will be going live in my group, in Finding Your Unhappy group, every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time with a different topic each day. So tune in there as well for more information. I will talk a little bit more about some pieces of Empath grad school there as well. So 10 o'clock every morning, Monday through Friday for the next couple of weeks at least, and then we'll see. So hope to see you there as well. And bye for now and have a lovely night.